welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Ashton. Thank y'all for joining me again today as we go through and do today's reading for September 8th from James Allen's Daily Meditation. And I got to say that the way yesterday's ended and just the whole layout of yesterday, how it talked about the problem of evil and it quoted Emerson and Rousseau, just how man's selfishness and self-centeredness is really what evil is. I believe that. So let's see what today's brings us. This, of course, will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning that this will be the first time that I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with you. So you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully y'all are too. And here we go. This is September 8th reading of James Allen's Daily Meditations. Without strength of mind, nothing worthy of accomplishment can be done. The cultivation of that steadfastness and stability of character which is commonly called willpower is one of the foremost duties of man. Sorry about that. One of the foremost duties of man, for its possession is essentially necessary both to his temporal and external well-being. Fixedness of purpose is at the root of all successful efforts, whether in things worldly or spiritual, and without it man cannot be otherwise than wretched. Dependent upon others for that support which should be found within himself. The true path of will cultivation is only to be found in the common everyday life of the individual, and so obvious and simple is it that the majority, looking for something complicated and mysterious, pass it by unnoticed. The direct and only way to greater strength is to assail and conquer weakness. Please excuse the I'll say broken reading of this one. The one I'm reading it off of, which is one of the original copies of his meditations, just the way it's structured was threw me off. So I apologize for that, but I'm looking forward to going back through it and kind of sorting it back out again. But the overall message, just from what I picked up on it this first time through, is just so good. We're talking about purpose and direction, and we're talking about character development, and that's what we're here for, isn't it? That's what I'm here for. That's what I came into reading all of these books for. I wanted to understand what purpose was, and I also wanted to understand how to change my character. So this is the meat and potatoes, as they say. This is what separates the men from the boys. So here we go. We'll read this through one line at a time again. Without strength of mind, nothing worthy of accomplishment can be done. It kind of resonates with and follows along with that saying of anything worth your time, you're going to have to work for, or whatever that is, more specifically. If it's easy, everyone would have it type of situation. People say that about recovery. The things you actually have to earn, you'll have the most joy and pride in, rather than just a fluke thing. So, without strength of mind, nothing worthy of accomplishment can be done. Because things worthy of accomplishment requires strength of mind, strength of character, discipline, things like that. Now for the main body of this. The cultivation of that steadfastness and stability of character, which is commonly called willpower, is one of the foremost duties of man, for its possession is essentially necessary both to his temporal and external well being. All right, to read that properly sounds a whole lot different than the first time I read it, doesn't it? So, the cultivation of that steadfastness and stability of character. So, to constantly, to show up consistently, to be a person of integrity, which means you're always true to yourself and honoring who you are, right? You act the same way when no one's looking as when everyone's looking. That's integrity. So, and those things are called willpower. And it's our duty, he says here. And I believe that that's what we're here for, because if we don't take this responsibility on to develop our character and to achieve a higher purpose in life than just self satisfaction, it's just we turn into sinful, deplorable, self serving, self indulgent beasts. That might be a little bit of harsh language, but that's what I turned into. I was solely concerned with my own pleasure out there. So this character development we're talking about here, and the steadfastness and stability, which is what I actually craved in my life, became my priority to develop as I got sober and I went through this journey of recovery. And he says on the second half of that sentence, it is necessary, essentially necessary, both to his temporal, so our mind and our body. And so, wait, temporal and external well being. So that could mean our mind and our physical bodies and our interactions in the world, right? So, all capacities outside of spiritual, cultivating the will has a huge impact on. And that's been my own personal experience, so I agree with it. Fixedness of purpose. Fixedness of purpose. So, a direction, a sure direction. So, fixed direction. Fixedness of purpose is at the root of all successful efforts. So, you can't be successful if you don't know what success looks like, in the sense of what, how would you measure success? How would you put yourself working towards something, right? How do you do that when you don't have anything you're working towards? When you don't have um, a path you're walking to, right? We've talked about having an ideal we want to achieve. That's how we measure our spiritual progress. We measure it against the ideal. So, fixedness of purpose is the root of all successful efforts. That's true, and I agree with it. Whether in things worldly or spiritual. So, I would, I brought up the um, ideal, and that could be Christ-like, that could be God-like, that could be like our creator, our source. That could be a spiritual leader. Some people commonly use one as Jesus, right? So that can be our ideal. And that's a spiritual context. And then worldly, other people could take a lot of other characters and place them in there. Even though I do feel like that'd be a form of idolatry. But he says here, worldly or spiritual. So I guess wherever you are in your life, if you haven't embarked on that spiritual journey yet, then you're still doing this for the worldly things. And even in the worldly perspective, in the worldly area of life, you still have to have a fixed purpose to be successful of any capacity. He goes on here to say, and without it, man cannot be otherwise than wretched and dependent upon others for that support which should be found within himself. So if we don't cultivate this character, if we don't latch on to this purpose, right? If what the singleness of purpose, fixedness of purpose is what he called it in this reading. Same thing though. Um, we're just drifting, purposeless. We're drifting of no real with no real um, constructive capacities in our lives. We're not building ourselves or others up. We're not contributing back to things a lot of times in these situations. And we just become wretched. I did. I was absolutely miserable. I was a wretched, sad, despairing human being. And I did depend on others for that support that I should have found within myself. That strength in my commitment to principle that I now have, that's carried me through many things. I didn't have that before. I had to rely on others for their guidance. I had to rely on others for their love and their just generalized support of what I was doing. And that's selfish of me to do. It's selfish of me to put that requirement and expectation upon others, isn't it? I didn't know that until I started to get a spiritual life and a spiritual program. And when I did that, I realized I was taking so much and putting so much of my expectations or I put so much of my power in their hands to make me happy or to make me contented, to make me inspired. I put that on everyone else instead of taking responsibility for it myself, which is what should have happened. I didn't know that was the path I needed to take, though, unfortunately. The true path of will cultivation is only to be found in the common, everyday life of the individual. It's so obvious and simple is it that the majority, looking for something complicated and mysterious, pass it by unnoticed. So we're talking about the daily living, the daily disciplines, the daily practices of spiritual principle and virtue. It's not this huge revelation. It's not this pilgrimage. It's not this martyrdom and self-sacrificing for ego. It's living well. It's living rightly. It's living in accordance with God's will, not your own. It's living in a Christ-like ideal. It's a simple, beautiful way of living. But many will miss it, thinking it needs to be this mysterious, abstract, uh, metaph- metaphysical obscurity. Because, of course, they couldn't just try to be honest for a little bit. They had to find something broken with them. A lot of people need those broken labels to excuse themselves from getting better, which might sound ridiculous, might sound insane. And yes, it is ridiculous. Yes, it is insane. But yes, it does happen often. People love their disability. People love their I don't know if disability. I don't want to say love their disability, but they love the excuse having a disability or having a sickness gives them. They can get pity, sympathy, and get away with just being miserable. And that suits us sometimes. So, all right, now this last line. The direct and only way to greater strength is to assail and conquer weakness. And I believe that's true. I believe that whenever a weakness arises, whenever a defect of character rears its ugly head, it's my responsibility to address it, to do the work, to take a look at it, to tear it apart, and to change that behavior. Other people don't need to suffer the trauma responses of my own. Thank God for the 12 steps and thank God for a spiritual path to walk so I can actually heal those things instead of demanding the world cater to me. I do believe in conquering weakness to achieve greater strength. So, all right. Great reading today. Loved this. Absolutely supremely impactful. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this. September's taking a pretty powerful um scope of things. So, we'll see how it all turns out and we'll catch up tomorrow. So, until next time. Thanks.